Donald Trump has his first sit-down interview in the Oval Office with me. No, with Sean Hannity. But it was a really good interview, and we're going to watch it because he revealed some things about the JFK files that might be a surprise to you. Also, he seems pretty sick of these questions about the January 6th pardons, aren't you? Well, he let Sean Hannity know, and Marjorie Taylor Greene let a couple of reporters know about it, and we're going to see how she handled it. Speaking of handling reporters' questions, politician in Canada, our favorite conservative up there, he was asked a question about genders. How many are there? He handled it like a boss, and you're going to see that and a whole lot more coming up right now. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Yeah, sick of questions about January 6th, sick of questions about gender, sick of questions about all these things, except my question to you, have you subscribed yet? Yeah, you can't get sick of that. Subscribe, whatever platform you're watching us on. And don't just pick one, because you never know if our stream goes down on one, you want to flip over to the other. We're streaming live right now on YouTube and on Rumble and on Facebook and on X. Find us, subscribe, get the alerts. Boom. Thank you. Increased tariffs on our trade partners. It's in the works right now. Tax cuts, working on it in the House. Regulation changes already in the works. You've got to learn why gold is a viable diversification tactic right now more than ever. Birch Gold, the only gold company I endorse, they're releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era with a foreword written by Donald Trump Jr. To get your free copy, along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold, text my name, Larry, to the number 989898. That's Larry to 989898. When you do that, you'll get your free book, Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era, with a foreword written by Donald Trump Jr., and you'll get the free information kit on gold. Because Birch Gold, the company I recommend to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, I love them because they do that for you without a penny out of your pocket. This is an existing account. It's money you've already got. You just convert it into that tax shelter IRA in gold. They've got an A+ rating. That's why I love them, from the Better Business Bureau. And they've got thousands of happy customers. That's really why I love Birch Gold. So text Larry to 989898. Free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. There's no obligation, just information. Thanks. Do that now. Last night, Fox News Channel, Donald Trump sits with Sean Hannity for an exclusive 2-part interview right from the Oval Office. Part 2 will be tonight. Part 1 was last night, but we got a lot of information out of Part 1, especially this little exchange about Trump's promise to release the JFK assassination files.
You stated that you will release the files, all of the files, as it relates to the JFK assassination. And by the way, this is his desk.
Yeah, that's right.
This is where John Kennedy, little John Kennedy.
That's a movable door.
Yeah.
It's a little door there. That's where John was.
John, yeah. And RFK, and also Martin Luther King Jr., and that you will be transparent. This was going to happen in the first
So many
term.
people have asked me to do that. And I did it with Kennedy to an extent, but I was asked by some of our government officials not to. And, you have to respect them. I was actually asked by Mike Pompeo, who's Secretary of State, not to. And I felt he knew something that maybe, when he asks you not to, you sort of say, why? And he felt that it was just not a good time to release him. And you might ask him why. Maybe he'll deny that even. But he did. He asked me. And some others also, though. They didn't want the Kennedy stuff released. And they're professionals, and I respect them. And they're working for me and the country. They're working for the country. And so I didn't release. But I'm going to release them immediately upon getting. We're going to see the information. We're looking at it right now.
You state.
Okay, that's all very interesting. Not so much in that he revealed anything about the JFK assassination papers, but the fact that it was held up in his first term by people like this guy, Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State. Graduated first in his class from West Point, was an officer in the United States Army, then ran for Congress from Kansas. He's actually from Orange County, California, by the way, was born in Orange County and then moved to Kansas and then became a congressman representing Kansas in the House of Representatives. Before he was Secretary of State for Donald Trump, he was the CIA director. Remember that? It was only about 7, 8, 9 months, I think. And then he was moved from CIA to the State Department. State Department and CIA, by the way, around the world work very much hand in glove with each other. So there's a good transition there between CIA and State Department. But the key here is that as director of CIA and as Secretary of State, clearly he had a pretty good working knowledge of a whole lot of America's secrets. And according to Donald Trump, he was one of the key people imploring him not to release the papers on the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now, here's the thing. If there's nothing for the government to hide 70 years after the fact, by continuing to keep these things hidden, it makes it look like the government has something to hide. And if the government does have something to hide 70 years later about whatever role they may or may not have had in the assassination of the President of the United States, well, damn it, we should see that. We deserve to know about it. We've learned a lot of terrible things that our government has done, from the Tuskegee experiments to horrific things in the 19th century to the COVID-19 pandemic. You don't have to go too far back in history, and the censorship of Americans and the attack on people's freedoms. We're big boys and girls. And by the way, we're paying for this thing. We bought those papers. Those JFK papers that the government is sitting on right now didn't just kind of come from out of the blue. The paper was literally bought with our tax dollars, and the person who typed them back in the day was paid for by us. They're ours. Let us see them. Please explain the national security implications. Think about, what is it they're hiding that they're afraid to reveal because it might have problems with our current foreign policies? It was the United States of America in 1963. The Soviet Union, our major adversary, they're gone. There is no Soviet Union anymore. Famously, the KGB, they've released all of their papers and the Venona papers, right? We've been able to see a ton of their secrets. What don't they want us to know about what our own government did? And if there's nothing to hide, stop acting this way, because it makes people think that you're evil. The best way to keep people from thinking that the government is hiding evil secrets about what they've done to us is to stop hiding things from us. And why Mike Pompeo was the person who led the charge on this, according to Donald Trump, well, that's a bit of a head scratcher. By the way, President Trump also has revoked Mike Pompeo's security detail. And also, I believe he still has his clearance, though, right? According to a March 2022 report, State Department was paying more than $2 million a month for a 24-hour security on Mike Pompeo. That has now been revoked. Let's take a walk down memory lane, not too far back, when Robert F. Kennedy Jr., after he endorsed Donald Trump, he appeared on Tucker Carlson's video cast. And the question of the assassination papers, as well as Mike Pompeo himself, well, the topics came up in the conversation. Let's remember this, shall we?
You know, in your joint appearance on Friday, President Trump introduced you by saying that he plans to, if elected, establish a commission to declassify the remaining documents around your uncle's murder in 1963.
Yeah.
And I think everyone at this point knows the truth, which is the CIA is implicated in that. Those documents protect CIA, maybe among others.
Well, whether they do or not, I mean, it's odd that they've not allowed them to be released. Because
what could possibly be the
more
explanation?
than 60 years after my uncle's death, almost 65 years, 62 years after his death. And none of the people who were implicated in that crime are alive now.
Yes.
And the last ones have died off in the last year or two. And so it clearly is to protect the institution.
Yes.
And that's wrong. It's just wrong. And it's wrong for a Democrat and it's wrong for Republicans.
It's just interesting, though, that a bipartisan list of presidents, these 6 decades, have kept those files classified.
Well, you and I have both. I was astonished that Trump didn't declassify him because he promised to during the campaign.
That was Mike Pompeo who did that.
Yeah, and that I talked to President Trump for the first time about that this week, and
What did he say?
He said that Mike Pompeo begged him to. And I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here.
No,
I think he told the same thing to you.
That's
right?
true.
But he said Mike Pompeo called him and said this would be a catastrophe to release these. You need to not do it. And then,
I want to say again, I think Mike Pompeo is a criminal. So that's my view. He's threatened to sue me for saying that, but I hope he will because it's true. But that kind of tells the whole story right there, right? That the CIA is.
Well, yeah. So that's the
why
thing.
would the CIA be trying to keep these files classified if they had nothing to do with the murder? I don't.
You're muted, Larry.
That right there, that's the bottom line. Why are they so insistent on keeping these files hidden and sequestered if they didn't have something to do with it? There's been so many conspiracy theories around the JFK assassination. And frankly, until I see otherwise, I still just assume it was Lee Harvey Oswald, right? Acting alone. That's what a lot of the evidence seems to suggest, right? But just for a second here, the fact that they keep hiding this information, then we have to explore, okay, then clearly they're trying to keep something from us or they're trying to protect some information that's in those documents, right? And by the way we know the U.S. government works, they could just be protecting their own incompetence, right? For all we know. But all of the theories around the assassination of John F. Kennedy revolve around either Oswald acting alone or the Soviets working through communists in Cuba, right? Or mobsters who are associated with the mafia, who were angry at the Kennedys for going after the mob, or extreme right. They tried to throw this one out there back then, but to remind you, tell me about how everything old is new again and how they never, the left, the liberals, the media at the very beginning, they said, oh, it was extreme right wingers. It was those crazy right wingers in Dallas who hate Democrats and hate Kennedy. And it was the right wingers who were involved in the Bay of Pigs who were angry that Kennedy didn't follow up and try to overthrow Castro. So it was, they tried that one. So, but let's throw it out there. Maybe it's the right wingers that were part of it. Or the other theory is it's the CIA. The bottom line is, who are they protected by not releasing this? And why don't they treat us like big boys and girls that we can handle this? We can handle it. You know what we can't handle? Lies. We can't handle cover-ups. We can't handle you trying to protect us from the truth that we paid for. It's ours. Let us see them. Tucker Carlson just said that Mike Pompeo is a criminal. He thinks he's a criminal and he's okay getting sued. By the way, that's Tucker Carlson's opinion, not mine. I don't know enough about Mike Pompeo to say that one way or the other, but we wanted to report so you can decide. It should be pointed out, though, by the way, it's like, well, why did Trump do that for Pompeo? If you look back at the Trump administration, Pompeo was one of the most effective cabinet members for Trump. He did a very good job on the world stage. He helped work with Latin American countries. He helped work with the Abraham Accords, and he was pretty damn loyal to Trump right up until the end. I'm not defending Pompeo. I'm just shedding light on and giving you analysis on why Trump would do this for Pompeo if he was begging him. Well, they had a pretty good working relationship, I got to say, certainly compared to some other cabinet officials. Pompeo's one of the very few that lasted from day one all the way through to the end of the Trump's first term. The bottom line is these papers must be released. Trump has promised to release them, and now would be a really good time. It was floated yesterday afternoon that the papers were going to get out. Then it was pulled back and said, no, they're still doing some evaluation. But at the moment, we do not have a confirmed CIA director, John Ratcliffe. Even if they do confirm him, I'm assuming that Ratcliffe's going to do what Trump asks because, number one, he's not Mike Pompeo. Number two, he was a very loyal and good director of national intelligence when he worked for Trump the first time around. And number three, Trump's the president. And he ran saying he was going to do this. And so maybe I'm naive. It's a humble little suggestion. But I think if the president who said he was going to do something when he ran for election and then won the election and everyone working in his cabinet only have their jobs because he won that election, if he says, let's do something, maybe it's me. I think they should do it. Donald Trump sitting with Sean Hannity yesterday in the Oval Office for an exclusive interview on Fox News Channel. And of course, the question of the pardons for the January 6ers came up. If you're sick and tired of this conversation, well, you're not alone. Donald Trump seems pretty sick and tired of it, too. Yesterday, we spent a little bit of time talking about it and compared it to the pardon that Gerald Ford gave for Nixon, which was controversial at the time and certainly politically volatile for Jerry Ford. Some people think he didn't win re-election because he pardoned Richard Nixon, but he did it for one reason and one reason only, because the country was divided. There were strong passions on both sides of the issue, and he thought it was in the best interest of our nation to move forward. I think that was a big part of why Donald Trump did this too, but he still has to face questions. That's what goes with sitting in the big desk there in the Oval Office. So he took the question from a friendly reporter from Sean. It doesn't get any friendlier on cable news than Sean Hannity. And I want you to watch how this exchange developed.
On a platform, you were very straightforward. You said you would pardon these people that were sentenced for January 6th.
Yeah, totally.
You did. The only criticism or pushback I've seen is about people that were convicted or were involved in incidents where they were violent with police. Why did they get a pardon?
A number of reasons. Number one, they were in there for 3.5 years, a long time.
Right.
And in many solitary confinement, treated like nobody's ever been treated so badly. They were treated like the worst criminals in history. And you know what they were there for? They were protesting the vote because they knew the election was rigged and they were protesting the vote. And that you should be allowed to protest the vote. You should be allowed to. You know, when the day
But
comes.
you shouldn't be able to invade the Capitol.
No, ready? Most of the people were absolutely innocent. Okay, but forgetting all about that, these people have served horribly a long time. It would be very, very cumbersome to go and look. You know how many people we're talking about? 1,500 people. Almost all of them should not have been. This should not have happened. And the other thing is this: some of those people with the police, true, but they were very minor incidents. Okay, you know they get built up by that a couple of fake guys that are on CNN all the time.
Nobody watches.
They were very minor incidents, and it was time. You have murderers in Philadelphia. You have murderers in Los Angeles that don't even get any time. They don't even collect them, and they know they're there to be collected. And then they go on television and act holier than thou about this one or that one. You had 1,500 people that suffered. That's a lot of people. You know, they were looking for new people 2 weeks ago. They were looking, wait a minute, they were looking to charge new people. They have a woman who's 76 years old that they said made a statement that was a little bit out of line years after the fact. This was a political hoax. And you know what? Those people, and I'm not saying in every single case, but there was a lot of patriotism with those people, a lot of patriotism. You know, they did a recording, and, you know, they asked me if I do the voiceover, and I did.
Yeah.
Do you know it was the #1 selling, whatever you call it nowadays, album, whatever, song,
CD,
whatever you call it. You don't know. It changes every year, right? But it was the #1 selling song, #1 on Billboard, #1 on everything for so long. People get it. They wanted to see those people.
American
released.
people were aware.
You're muted again, Larry.
I think that's a really compelling argument right there. The people voted for Donald Trump knowing exactly that he would do this. It's exactly what he said he was going to do. So, of course, he should do it. And listen, I understand a lot. I get it. A lot of people are like, sure. A lot of people got caught up and they got arrested and they got thrown in jail and their lives were ruined. And all they did was walk through a door that was held open. But some of those people were violent. Well, let me address that, if I may. Think about what you just said. Think about the most ardent, radical anti-Trumpers will at least, who are really worked up over January 6th and continue to be worked up on January 6th, almost all of them will actually concede to you, if pressed gently and nicely and respectfully, they will concede that some people who got thrown in jail for walking through a door that a police officer opened and literally said, come on in. Police officers said, come on in. and then people were put in jail. Your most ardent anti-Trumpers and people who were like blind with rage over January 6th will even concede, yes, there are some people who should not have been thrown in jail for this. And at that moment, you have to say, think about what you're saying here. Think about what you just admitted to and conceded. And it's that is the reason why this entire investigation was poisoned from the start. You know, in English law, which was established and then we adopted it and perfected it here in America. But there was a theory, a guiding principle. I think it was called Blackstone's theory. I'm not sure, and I apologize. I didn't go to college. I don't know this stuff. And it was something like, if 9 criminals are allowed to walk free at the expense of keeping 1 innocent person from being jailed, then that must be how the system works. Because the worst thing in the criminal justice system is not that criminals are allowed to walk free. The worst thing in the criminal justice system is if an innocent man is punished. All right. That has to be our guiding principle, because we give the government so much power over us to convict us and jail us. And we must have so many precautions to keep innocent people from being jailed. And you, my friend, you've just admitted that this giant net that was cast and the hundreds of millions of dollars of this holy war against anyone who may have been in the Capitol on January 6th, even if they were just on the grounds of the Capitol, didn't even walk in the building. And then those who did walk in the building, they shouldn't have been jailed. And yet they were. That's why this whole thing needs to be thrown out. You're not going to spend the next year and a half going through each individual case one by one and making a determination. Because if you do that, it means it's going to take time. And those innocent people that you just admitted are in jail right now, they got to keep sitting there in jail until the government moves at lightning speed to determine whether they should be pardoned or not. Hell no. No. If you admit that in this giant investigation and apprehension of individuals, many innocent people were caught up and thrown in jail, then that's why you've got to throw the whole damn thing out. The pardons were completely justified so that we can just move on from this. And if you say, well, they were violent. Yeah. And those who were violent, they have been punished dearly, I assure you. Punished more so than if they were just as violent in any other building in Washington, D.C. I guarantee you. I just interviewed the father of a man who was jailed for years because he broke 2 windows. He shouldn't have broken those windows. 100% shouldn't have broken those windows. How much time do you think a vandal serves in Washington, D.C. for breaking 2 windows at a Domino's Pizza? I assure you, not as much time served as this young man served. And that's why these pardons were justified and correct. I know that it doesn't make you feel better, but at least listen to that as an explanation and understand where we're coming from here. All right. Now, this is very interesting because the questioning continued. And you start to see now that Donald Trump treats the media, no matter who it is, in a very equal way. Because if you are not participating in the conversation in an understandable, respectful, and reasonable way, even if you're Sean Hannity, you're going to push a button or two. And that's what ends up happening here.
You told them what you would do. Joe Biden said he would not do it. Let me move on to the economy. It's so important. It was such a big input. Yeah.
I was very clear about it.
Very clear.
I said I was going to release him, and probably very quickly. And they voted for me, and I won in a landslide. And that was only one of the many reasons.
Joe said he would not do preemptive pardons back in 2020. Chuck Schumer said it. Schiff said it. They all said it. The media said it.
The precedent that he set on pardons is amazing. That's a much bigger story, but people don't like talking about it. He pardoned everybody, but he didn't pardon himself. And remember this, those people that he pardoned are now mandated, because they got a pardon, to testify, and they can't take the fifth.
Should Congress investigate that?
I think we'll let Congress decide.
Would you want the Attorney General to investigate it?
You know, I was always against that with presidents and Hillary Clinton. I could have had Hillary Clinton, a big number done on her.
Have you changed your mind?
And I didn't want to. Well, I went through 4 years of hell. by the scum that we had to deal with. I went through 4 years of hell. I spent millions of dollars in legal fees, and I won, but I did it the hard way. It's really hard to say that they shouldn't have to go through it also. It is very hard to say that. Joe Biden, remember this, Joe Biden got very bad advice because, like he has in everything.
Hunter's laptop.
He got bad advice on Ukraine. He got bad advice that war should have never started. He got bad advice on Israel. He got bad advice on the way he got out of Afghanistan. We should have gotten out with strength and dignity, not like a bunch of losers. Joe Biden has very bad advisors. Somebody advised Joe Biden to give pardons to everybody but him. They wanted to take care of, yeah, but Sean, they wanted to, I don't care.
They're yelling at me.
This is more important because right now the economy is going to do great.
I want to know about
I'm here, so the economy, but you have to understand, he had bad advisors on almost everything. It's like in the old days when the Secretary of State said he never made a correct decision on foreign policy. Joe Biden got very bad advice.
It got a little tense there, and Hannity kept interrupting, and Trump was not having any of it. And that bad advice there was very interesting because he went on to say that Biden didn't pardon himself, which is an eyebrow raiser because it makes you think, in other words, Biden is still up for prosecution. And actually, anything that happened before he was president, yes, he is eligible for prosecution. But he's also very disciplined in that interview. I don't know if you saw it, but when asked, do you think that Congress should do this? He was about to say something, and he stopped and he said, I'll let Congress decide. Trump 1.0 would not have done that. So I think that was a very good and disciplined exchange and a very interesting and enlightening exchange about the January 6 pardons. And I think that it made a lot of sense, hopefully. And listen, he's going to have to keep answering questions about this probably until he's done. And certainly the media is not going to let go of it. By the way, as you turn to MSNBC after this program, you might see that they're probably doing a big feature on the January 6 pardons again. And it's remarkable to me, B, for a couple of reasons. Number one, because while they're focusing on that, they're not seeing all the other stuff that Trump is doing right now incredibly effectively. We've already deported over 500 illegal alien criminals from this country, and they're not focusing on it at all. They're focused on something that literally has no circumstance at all. Let's just be clear. It's the whole point of a pardon. When you give a pardon, it's done. Case closed. It's over. So they can focus on it all they want, but it's not going to change anything, and no one can overturn these pardons. Trust me, if we could, we'd overturn Biden's pardons covering his own ass, but we can't. So it's over. The case is closed. It's done. You can't change it. They think that by talking about the January 6 pardons, they're laying the groundwork to hurt Trump in the midterm elections or something. But that's not going to work either, because by the time we get to the midterm elections, this is going to be such ancient history. And once again, the American people were fine with this. They knew Trump was going to do it, and he did it. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia is pretty sick and tired of getting asked about the January 6 pardons. And one cool thing about Marjorie Taylor Greene that I've noticed, because I've been on Capitol Hill, I've interviewed her. When you interview her, she's got an aide from her office that holds an iPhone and records the interview. And they usually end up releasing that interview on social media before the professional reporter has a chance to chop it up and edit it and put it in their article or put it in whatever feature they're doing. It's brilliant, actually. And we've got a couple of examples of that. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene being asked by a reporter about the January 6 pardons. And MTG, she does it all perfectly.
Come to the Capitol or do any tours or any meetings here?
Is this all you really talking about is the J6ers that have been pardoned?
Yeah.
Okay, are you gonna talk about the Biden family that got pardoned? No?
I haven't.
Oh, okay, what about the rapers and killers and murderers that Joe Biden pardoned? There's tons of them. Is that a focus at all?
Well, I'm asking about J6.
I know that's what you're asking. I know that's what you're asking about, and I'm not doing this. This insane place up here and all of y'all's obsession with January 6th is absurd. Everybody outside of here is sick and fucking tired of it. I'm serious. And so Joe Biden pardons all these murderers and rapists and disgusting people. And then everybody up here has got their panties in a wad because J6ers got pardoned. Like people that walk through open doors. A lot of them walk through open doors. That's it. But everybody here is like, oh, J6. Seriously.
But you've been so outspoken on this issue.
Yes, I have. And they're pardoned. And thank God, I hope they go live their lives and can reassemble something back together because they have suffered enough. Go do a story on all the Antifa BLM people that never served time. Over 95% of them, seriously. Think about that. And go do a story on these cities that BLM burned to the ground and they never built back. They raised all that money on ActBlue and they never built those communities back.
You don't think it's a fair question to ask you because you've been so outspoken.
It is nauseating. I've seen all the Democrat-run networks ad nauseum about January 6th, and they just can't get over themselves, but they don't give a shit about real Americans.
The speaker just created a select committee to investigate January 6th, so it's not like Republicans aren't talking about this.
No, but it was your question. Are you gonna have J6ers come in? Are you gonna give them tours? Like, I'm so sick of you people and all this crap. I really am.
The reason why I asked that is because other people have said that, and so I assumed you would be one of the people that would also be having tours. Just because I know you're close to some of the people.
Because you're assuming. You know, the problem is you people never gave me a fair shot to begin with, and you all these assumptions and all these headlines and all these lies. So you came in asking me, why don't you do a story on what people care about? People care about the border, the economy, energy. They're sick and tired of the foreign wars. They're tired of the hypocrisy up here, and they hate the media right now. They do. I'm serious. You guys have created a situation where you're not trusted and people are sick of you. And it's sad. I'm serious, it's sad. Well, so no, I'm not answering this question because I'm not going down this stupid thing of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Well, I don't think it's stupid to ask that question. I mean, just you've been so outspoken on this issue, I thought you might want to talk about it. But that's why I asked, so I'm glad I did. Thanks, guys.
All right. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this was absolute brilliance. Number one, I already told you, the fact that they've got their own staffer who records this for their own purposes and then proactively puts it out on social media so that they can dominate the narrative behind this exchange and define the terms of the narrative before the reporter has a chance to get her word out or his word out. That's number one. Number two, the response of challenging the reporter and saying, is this really all you're going to talk about? Are you going to talk about this? Are you going to talk about that? Are you going to talk about that? Are you talking about that? And by the way, those things that she asked they were going to talk about, other than Joe Biden's pardons, which are completely legitimate, all those other things are in the top 5 of things that the American people care about right now when you ask them what are the most important issues in the country. And she's pointing out in that exchange that the reporter doesn't care what the American people care about. This is something that the people in newsrooms in Washington, D.C. and Manhattan care really strongly about, but the rest of the country doesn't. And by highlighting that, you're pointing out how irrelevant the media is. Okay, number 3, the reporter, young lady, she needs a little more experience. Other reporters may not have fallen for this, but she did. And it's brilliant that MTG got her to walk into the trap. Can you guess what it is? MTG started challenging her and asking her questions, and the reporter engaged in a debate, which is not a reporter's job. The reporter should have just stuck with her questions instead of responding and answering and saying, oh, but you guys did this and you guys did that and other congressmen did this. Now you're proving that you're not there just to get information or a quote from the congresswoman for your article. You're there to win a debate. You're there to be right. You're there to dominate the congresswoman and show the world and all your readers and all your viewers that you're on the right side of the issue and Marjorie Taylor Greene's on the wrong side of the issue. And by the way, that might be true, but that's not your job. And she fell for it, and MTG got her, and it was great. You know what's even better? The fact that it wasn't the first time in the last 24 hours this happened. Here we are in the tunnels underneath the Cannon office building, corridor underneath Independence, walking to Capitol Hill, and with temperatures hitting about 14 degrees in Washington, D.C., with a wind chill of -3, I would walk down that corridor too, underneath the street. Here she is when confronted by a gaggle of reporters asking, you guessed it, the same thing.
About the January 6th pardons. Do you
Oh, I'm thrilled with President Trump, and I'm very thankful to him. You know, over 95% of Antifa BLM rioters were never prosecuted. They never served time in prison. And many of these communities that were burned to the ground, BLM never donated that money to help build those communities back. President Trump did the right thing in pardoning them, while Joe Biden pardoned his crime family, pardoned Fauci, pardoned Milley, pardoned January 6th committee members, pardoned rapists, murderers. That's what you should be focused on. Because I'll tell you what, you guys, the American people are sick and tired of everyone's hyper focus up here in Washington, freaking out about a day where there was a 3-hour riot and a lot of people walked through open doors in the Capitol. They don't give a damn about January 6th. They're happy these people have their lives back. You know what people care about? Border security, the economy, jobs. They care about, they're sick and tired of the foreign wars. That's what people care about outside of this city. So the hyper focus by the media on January 6th needs to end, because I'm hearing from people at home. I hear from people all over. They think you're pathetic because that's all you talk about. They think you're disconnected with the American people, and they think you don't understand it. So everybody needs to put their big boy pants and big girl pants on and move on and actually care about what the American people care about. And it's not January 6th. Okay.
For some of the rioters that engaged in violence with the police, fought against the police, there was a stun gun incident as well. I mean, should there be accountability there?
Is that the same as like the murderer that like murdered an 11-month-old child and murdered a young woman that Joe Biden pardoned? Is that the same thing? A stun gun and a young woman and a baby that was killed? So why don't you do apples to apples instead of creating this like whole thing about how terrible this is? Again, get over it. I hope these January 6th defendants move on with their lives. I hope that they are able to be happy, because I tell you what, they've suffered enough. And that's the reality.
But is there ever an excuse for assaulting a police officer?
You tell me. Antifa and BLM, over 95% of them never prosecuted.
But that justifies what happens on
Never
January 6th?
never served time in prison. Never served time in prison.
But does that justify
Does that
the violence
justify
on
all Joe
January
Biden's
6th?
pardons? Does that justify all Joe Biden's pardons? Murderers, rapists, Fauci, Milley, Biden crime family? Get some therapy. Seriously.
Would you do that?
Get some therapy is a great way to end that. And by the way, the appropriate answer that she was right on the border of saying is all the Antifa and all the BLM and all the violence and all of the arson and all of the vandalism and all of the cops that were injured, over 70 of them nationwide, there was hardly any arrests made there, a very small handful of them. Those people never served one day. They were never arrested, let alone prosecuted and incarcerated. The person who used a stun gun, as you just pointed out, that person was arrested. That person was prosecuted. That person was incarcerated. That person did serve time, a hell of a lot more time than anybody that you just mentioned. And back to Joe Biden's pardons. Joe Biden used the pardon power. Donald Trump used the pardon power against these January 6 people. And to a man and woman, they were all from rural and suburban areas in this country who felt passionately about the election. They were there for a rally. It got out of hand and it was bad, as she said, for 3 hours. And laws were broken. But they were all middle to lower class people, blue collar people, without names, without lawyers, without profiles, without any influence in the United States of America or in the government. That's who Donald Trump just used his pardon power on. Joe Biden used his pardon power on his brother and his son and members of his family who were all rich and powerful and corrupt. He used his pardon power on Anthony Fauci and Liz Cheney and politicians who can afford as many lawyers as they want, who I was told was innocent. I was told that they wanted their day to be able to make their case. Anthony Fauci, after all, represents science. Why wouldn't he want to defend himself? But that's who Joe Biden used his pardon power on. People who never, ever served 1 minute as punishment for what they did to the American people. You know what? We got 2 good sets of pardons here that you can use and compare. And you may say, hey, that doesn't make it right. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right. And now we've got a reset. And now we can move forward. And that should be the end of all of this until they ask again. By the way, the media's behavior here and the fact that they've made themselves so irrelevant here and out of touch with the American people and stay fixated on these issues that matter to them but not to the American people, it's a big part of why I wrote this book, Shameless Liars: How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. It's all about the 2024 campaign and how the media covered Trump and covered up for Biden and Harris. It's a great book, and it's available for pre-order now on pre-Kindle, pre-order now on Kindle, and hardcover and paperback and audiobook on Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 28th. Just go to Amazon and search for Shameless Liars. You're going to love the book. And how great is that cover, huh? Look at that cover. I love that cover. I promise the inside is almost as good as the cover. You can, in fact, in this case, judge a book by its cover. Jim Acosta still has a television show at CNN for another couple of hours. Yeah, he's being moved to the graveyard shift at midnight. Boy, that's a sign of confidence that you're doing a hell of a job. But in one of his final appearances in middays yesterday, he had congressmen on to challenge him on, well, you guessed it, January 6th. And it didn't go well for Jim Acosta.
Thanks so much for being here. Axios is reporting that Trump's January 6 pardons were a last-minute decision. His team was reportedly wrestling with how to handle them. But according to one advisor, Trump said, quote, "F it, release them all." Your response?
Well, Jim, as always, it's good to be on here for my weekly beating from you all at CNN, and I appreciate you, brother. And I was thinking about you this morning, actually, because I remember Rush Limbaugh. Somebody called in when Bill Clinton was elected president, and they said, "Oh, I bet you're depressed." And he said, "Depressed? Heck no, I got 4 years of material." Just think, you've got 4 years of material at least right
well,
now.
I'm not so much worried about material, Congressman, as I am about the president releasing violent offenders who attacked the Capitol, where you're standing right now on January 6th. People who are convicted of seditious conspiracy.
Can I point out, first of all, how Tim Burchett, the Republican from Tennessee, has already won this exchange? Tim Burchett, with humor and good cheer, disarmed Jim Acosta, threw him off his game a little bit, and then got him just now to reveal that this is not an interview. This is Jim Acosta grandstanding for his own political perspective, his own political views, and he's using Tim Burchett. He's going to try to use Tim Burchett as a punching bag to win a debate. Because you heard Jim Acosta just say, well, I'm not worried about having material. I'm worried about these people who are let free. Wait a second. You're a reporter. You're not supposed to have any worries. You're not supposed to have any bias. You're not supposed to have an agenda. You're not supposed to have a freaking opinion about this. You're there to ask questions. But you just let everybody in the world know, Jim Acosta, in the middle of the day on CNN, and probably why you're not going to be there much longer, that you're not just a host of a television show who conducts interviews with newsmakers. You have an opinion, you have an agenda, and boy, oh boy, you're going to make sure that you grill this congressman so that you can win the day. So Tim Burchett has already defeated Jim Acosta at the very beginning. And it gets worse for Jimmy.
I spoke with Officer Harry Dunn at the top of the program. I spoke with the ex-wife of Stuart Rhodes, Tasha Adams. They are both worried about their safety. Do you defend what Donald Trump did, releasing these people from prison, pardoning them, commuting their sentences? Yes or no?
Well, I was the last person to leave the Capitol grounds, the floor of the Capitol, last member of Congress on January 6th when all this went down. I was offended as anybody. If they crossed those barriers, they were breaking the law. But you got to realize, too, they are charged under federal law. Many of them never even saw their day in court and were sitting in a jail cell. So the whole thing is
Congressman,
bad news. But you also,
Congressman, I asked you a yes or no question. Do you agree with President Trump's decision to pardon these violent people and releasing them from jail?
If they were truly violent, no. But do I know that they were? I don't know that.
What do you mean you don't know that? We're showing the footage on the air right now. Congressman, you were there that day. There are offenders on January 6th who violently beat police officers. There are offenders who are convicted of seditious conspiracy. That is the truth.
This is a political world, Jim, and I don't remember you all on CNN condemning Joe Biden for commuting the sentences of murderers and child molesters, which he did. And you all
Congressman, I'm not
refused-
asking
you
about
refused-
that. Congressman,
Well,
we talked
you
about Joe
never do.
Biden's
You
pardons.
never do, Jim.
Congressman, we
You
did
never
talk
do.
about it. We talked about Joe Biden's
Oh,
pardons.
Jim, you did not. You all read your
asking you-
report from the Democrat National Committee, as you
That
always
is,
do,
that
and
is
you attack
absolutely
Americans.
false. Congressman,
No.
are you going to respond and say whether or not it is right to let these people out of jail?
Can I just pause here for a quick second? Well, we watch reporters, journalists, TV hosts, haircuts that can read a teleprompter. We watch them interview congressmen, senators, presidents, vice presidents, politicians of all stripes all the time. Do you ever see any of them interview a Democrat like this? Ever? And I mean ever. And don't give me that, well, this guy is just dodging the question. Every politician dodges the question. It's an art. Are you kidding me? When a Democrat is good at dodging the question and spinning and not answering, after the interview, Jim Acosta and his friends on the panel will say, God, he's good at that, isn't he? He's so good at doing the media. He's really good at working us, man. But they never, and I mean never, press the issue and say, answer the question, answer me now, sir, answer me. Will you not answer me? Did you or did you not? Isn't it just, it's such incredible bullshit. And everybody sees right through it. And Burchett is perfectly in his rights to say, you know what, I will answer your question after I see just as much time given to Joe Biden pardoning his corrupt family. You just spent the last 5 years telling us that Joe Biden did nothing wrong. He lied on the debate stage saying that his son did nothing wrong and he never took money from the Chinese. You lied and told us it was Russian disinformation. And then in the final minutes that he was president, while Donald Trump was giving his speech, he pardoned his own family for the corrupt crimes for the last 10 years. And now you're worked up over this? You tell you what, you go do that segment and then I'll answer your question. But it gets better. Oh, Acosta's about to lose it. Watch.
I don't know if it is or not. I'm not a lawyer, but I'll tell you what isn't
You're a
right.
congressman.
is
You're
for
a member
them-
of Congress. You're an elected
It is
official.
not.
Take a stand.
They were not given due process. I told you if they crossed the line, they were trespassers. Should they rot in jail for the rest of their lives in a federal
Beating,
penitentiary
not
and never be
trespassing,
charged?
beating police officer, tasing police officers,
what you're
seditious
forgetting to know-
conspiracy.
What you're forgetting to say is the ones that he didn't release. Why did he not release those? There are several that he did. This blanket thing you're all talking about is not a blanket. It's not a blanket pardon. There were several that he didn't for those very same reasons. Why are you not focusing on
Congressman,
them?
we're talking
I
about
don't know
the leader of the Oath Keepers, the leader of the Proud Boys. They should be released from prison.
What about the leader of the FBI? What about the FBI agents that were on the grounds that were in that mess?
Congressman,
that were
the
helping
leader of the
orchestrate
FBI
that?
was not rioting at the Capitol that day and beating up police officers. Whatever happened to Back the Blue? I want to show this. The Fraternal Order of Police, another police organization out there, the International Organization of Police Chiefs. We can show that up on screen. That would be great. They both say that what President Trump did is wrong. They're deeply discouraged.
Boy, this show is functioning like a finely oiled machine. How big is the staff there? And I'm able to get videos up and down on the screen faster and more efficiently than they can. It's amazing. They're good, aren't they? Yeah, what a budget drain this is. But you can see now he's trying to draw a wedge between the police officers. You know, whatever happened to Back the Blue? Now you're against police officers. So again, this is not an interview. This is a political operation. This is a propagandist political operation where he's trying to score political points on behalf of his party, right? That's not a question. What happened to Back the Blue? I thought you guys like cops. Yeah, okay. Again, back to Joe Biden. He just pardoned a guy who murdered 2 FBI officers. And by the way, today, Donald Trump just pardoned and commuted the sentence of 2 cops in D.C. who were railroaded with a BLM conviction for something that they should have never been arrested and convicted for. If they think that the J6 pardons is in some way going to make police officers in this country suddenly start supporting Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg, fine, you go with that. But more importantly, from a journalistic perspective, what about this is journalism? What about this is a news interview worthy of noon on CNN? Nothing. This is you're watching a political operation for a guy who's probably going to work for a Democrat in the very near future when CNN finally fires him.
By these pardons. And I want to ask you,
Jim, if they broke the law,
whatever
they ought to
happened?
be in jail. If they broke the law, they ought to be in jail.
Okay,
you
well-
spring this stuff on me. I don't know. I haven't seen the tapes of these individuals of
What
they
happened to
did.
back the blue? What happened to backing police officers? Your
I don't
party
know,
has
you
said
just-
time and again, we back the blue. It sounds like you let down the blue. You're betraying
Jim,
the blue.
Jim, why don't you just give an editorial and not let me come on? Look, what happened in the last 4 years with police? What happened with all the riots that took place all across the country? Police officers were murdered. Courthouses were burned. Over 22 police cars were burned. Yet no one went to jail for that. Where's your crocodile
You're
tears
engaging-
for that? No,
Congressman,
you're not
engaging
addressing
in
the
a game.
facts.
You're engaging
No.
in a game of whataboutism. People
Well,
were
what about what
obviously
you all do at
prosecuted after
CNN
those
every
riots.
day?
That-
Every
what are
day,
you
all
talking
you've
about
done
what
is
we're doing at CNN. We
E-
didn't storm
every
the
day.
Capitol. These people did, and President Trump let them out of jail. Why not just say you were wrong, Mr. President? Say it. Why can't you say it?
Jim, as I said, individually, I don't know the case, but on several he did not release from jail. Why are you not putting the story out on that and saying it's a blanket? Show me
All
the
right.
tapes of these individuals beating police officers.
We're
will you?
showing it right
Show-
now.
Of those
Congressman, you're
individuals
saying
that-
I'll be
no,
happy
no,
to
you're
go to
not.
your
You are
office and
not.
show you the footage
You are not,
of
Jim.
these
You're
people
showing-
beating police officers.
I've seen the footage. I've seen that footage, but of those individuals, Jim, you
Congressman,
say go
I
after
spoke with
the
the ex-wife of Stuart Rhodes, the leader of the Oath Keepers. This is what she told me just a few moments ago. Let's listen to this.
I'm worried. I am worried. I also worry about his followers. They're a bit unhinged, and he does seem to be regathering and regrouping his army, right now.
Congressman, there are relatives who turned in their relatives because they were involved on January 6th. Who's going to protect them now that these people
Jim,
have been released?
Jim, I had individuals from my community, bankers, church people that left before all this happened. The FBI came to their house, their places of business, and harassed them. This was a political thing from the start. It was a bad day in America. If they crossed the lines,
It's
they
not
were
a political
trespassing.
thing.
They
It's
should have
not a political thing.
Jim, it's
Congressman,
all
they broke
political.
the law. It's
all
not all
political.
political. There's such a thing as right and wrong and law and order. And Congressman, your party has said we back the blue. And I just want to ask you, if any of these people who were released from prison, if any of them commit crimes in the future, should Donald Trump take personal responsibility for that?
No more than Joe Biden should take personal responsibility for the 14 million people, for Laken Riley losing her life because he didn't have enough guts to enforce
I'm not
the
talking
law
about
and
Joe
back
Biden.
Americans.
If Joe
Well,
Biden
you
pardons
should be.
people
You
and they
all-
reoffend, he's obviously responsible for that. I'm
you all
asking
spent-
you, why can't
Look.
members of your party just tell the president when he's wrong? Why can't you do that?
You spent 4 years making
What are you
excuses
afraid
for
of?
a fellow with Alzheimer's in the lead office in this country.
Congressman, you and I know,
you
you and I talked about this. We raised questions about that time and again on this network, on this program.
You all made
I'm asking
excuses
you a
for him
question.
for 4 years.
Is
You elected
President
him.
Trump responsible? Is he responsible if some of these offenders reoffend? What happens if one of the Oath Keepers of the Proud Boys goes out there and hurts somebody? And they were involved on January 6th and were put in prison and Donald Trump released them. Isn't he then responsible for that? Isn't he responsible if somebody gets hurt?
I would say if they're Trump appointed judges, they will go to jail. But if they're Joe Biden appointed judges or Soros backed DAs, they'll probably walk as they do in New York and the rest of the country. As we saw during the Black Lives Matters marches, we saw in the riots all across the country, those people walked. Nobody went to jail for that. Millions upon millions of dollars of property was damaged. You all didn't raise a finger, didn't say one word about it.
Congressman,
you
that's
showed
just
it and
not
said, "Oh, it's
true.
all in order." You showed we had riots where towns were burning down, and they were allowed to do it. They were allowed to
Congressman,
do
we
it, and you all
covered it.
did not.
We
Oh, you covered it, Jim.
We
Come on,
covered it
Jim.
all
You
day
gave it the
long.
bare modicum of coverage, and then you went on to trash
I was at
Trump
the
or
White
some
House.
conservative cause.
I was at the White House covering the first Trump administration when they had rioting outside of the White House. I mean, that was covered on CNN. What you're saying?
Yeah, it was covered on CNN, but they spent the whole time attacking Trump, saying that Trump called out the National Guard to send tear gas onto these fiery but mostly peaceful protesters at the White House. Can we take any more of their bullshit? No, we cannot. It's and by the way, where was this righteous indignation from Jim Acosta as millions of people were let into this country completely unvetted to commit crimes over and over again in this country? And Tim Burchett, sadly, he's a good guy and he's doing a good job, but he keeps saying, you didn't cover that, you didn't cover that. No, that's not true. They did cover it. They covered it by covering it up. They covered it by saying this happened and it's terrible. But of course, illegal immigrants don't cause as much crime in this country as citizens do in this country. And of course, this isn't Joe Biden's fault and this isn't the Democrats' fault. What they didn't do, Congressman Burchett, if I may, what he should be saying is, I don't remember you bringing one of my colleagues, one of my Democrat colleagues on and challenging them on Joe Biden's policies. When Laken Riley was murdered in Georgia, why didn't you bring on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib and spend 10 minutes grilling them the way you're grilling me right now, saying, isn't Joe Biden responsible for this? Why can't you say it? Why can't you tell him he's wrong? What's wrong? Are you worried about that? Why? They never do that, ever, ever. And that's Jim Acosta for you. I hope you enjoyed that, because it's not going to last very long. CNN has announced that they're moving him to midnight. So you'll have to stay up into the wee hours of the morning to catch that kind of brilliance. And I doubt he'll get any more congressmen to sit for an interview with him, because congressmen don't like to stay up that late unless they're at the bar just down the street from the Capitol. And now, according to the New York Post, Jim Acosta is so indignant and embarrassed and humiliated by the move to midnight that he may quit instead of take it. And by the way, just so you know, between you and me, since I'm in the media and I know how these things work, that's exactly what CNN is hoping. See, they didn't want the bad publicity of firing him. They would rather have the bad publicity of moving him to midnight and then getting him to quit. Partly because they don't look quite as bad. And secondly, they don't have to pay him any severance. He quits, wash your hands, move on. Because the fact of the matter is, in Washington, D.C., in the media, and I assure you, in the hallways of CNN, Jim Acosta is a joke. Conservative Party member Pierre Poilievre in Canada could very well be the next prime minister. And what you're about to see is one of the key reasons why. Because he's really good at handling the media. Now, you remember the classic video of him that we helped make go viral here on this show, of him standing in an orchard eating an apple and dueling with a reporter who was trying to say, you know, you're just like Trump, you're a populist. And he goes, what does that mean? What are you even talking about? And he kept chewing on the apple, right? Well, he had a similar exchange here with someone who, again, tries to box him into a corner of being too Trumpy, and asking him a really, really tough gotcha question. Are you going to proclaim that there are only two genders here in Canada? Down in America, they said there's only two genders. But what about here in Canada? Because apparently in Canada, your body parts, I guess, are different than they are here in America. I know for men that's true. Anyway, here's how Pierre handled the question.
First day on the job, President Trump signed an executive order, the U.S. government only recognizing two genders, male, female. They're unchangeable. If elected as prime minister, is that something that you're going to kind of walk in line with, or what are your feelings on that executive order?
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
Me personally?
Yes.
I'm just asking more so if you're in line with what he is saying. Do you agree with what he's saying? Is that something that you would be lockstep with if elected as prime minister?
Well, I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
Well, there's personally, I am a man. I am people who say cis man. There are people there who, they say they're gender neutral. Well. You are a man. Yes. There are people there who say they're gender neutral. Yeah. They say they're gender neutral. They're a trans person. Is that something that you would recognize here? Whereas in the States, at least with their U.S. government, the way they're seeing it, there's only two.
I'm only aware of two, but I mean, if you come up with another list, then you're welcome to do that. But I'm aware of two. And as far as I'm concerned, We should have a government that just minds its own damn business and leaves people alone.
That's so brilliant on so many levels. And by the way, always, whenever you can turn it back on the reporter, do it, which is exactly what he did there. I'm sorry. Are you aware of more than just two genders? Please explain. Explain to me. He was, completely thrown off guard. He didn't know what to say. He couldn't even back up the logic of his own question because guess what? It is illogical, right? And then what did he say? When I finally did get around to trying to explain what other genders you could possibly be, this is brilliant.
Or a man, yes. There are people out there who say they're gender neutral. Yeah, they say they're gender neutral. They're a trans person. Is that something that you would recognize here?
Now think about that for a minute. So there's male and then there's female, but now you're saying that there's a trans person. So can you define what a trans person is? And then of course you're forced to say, well, it's someone who was born a man, aha, but now identifies as a woman, aha. We're still down to two. We're still down to two, baby. Help me out here. I think you're proving my point. And the nonplussed look on his face is always, it's just golden. And I love his delivery. But we discovered something here. Because, politicians, this is another gotcha question, right? Who are you going to piss off, pal? We're going to get you. We're going to get you to piss off somebody. This is a thing. And apparently politicians, specific to the Commonwealth, the British Commonwealth, they have issues with this. Now, this guy, Pierre Poilievre, in Canada, he gets it. And he handled this brilliantly. And, of course, we know what happened to this woman in America when she was asked kind of the same question, but actually even an easier question.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
I'm not a biologist. You got to have a degree to figure that one out, even though we were all sort of taught this and figured it out for ourselves when we were 2 and a half. But see, as I've always said, you have to have an advanced degree from a liberal arts college or maybe even a PhD to be that stupid. It takes a lot of education in an advanced studies course in a university to end up that stupid that you can't define what man and woman are. But let's get back to the British Commonwealth. Here is a British politician on BBC. See if you can see a pattern here.
Labour's definition of a woman?
Well, I have to say that there are different definitions legally around what a woman actually is. I mean, you look at the definition within the Equality Act, and I think it just says someone who is adult and female, I think, but then doesn't say how you define either of those things. I mean, obviously, that's then you've got the biological definition, legal definition.
No, I don't. With respect, I didn't ask for that. What's the Labour definition?
Oh, I think with respect, Emma, I think it does depend what the context is, surely. I mean, surely that is important here. There are people who have decided that they have to make that transition. I've spoken with many of them. It's been a very difficult process for many of those people. And, understandably, because they live as a woman, they want to be defined as a woman.
Okay, but the question was, define a woman. And she can't do it. Depends on the context, I think, might be my favorite dodge in that whole thing. But see, when you're a liberal, this is what you're forced to do. And you come out sounding like a babbling idiot. Now, when you're a conservative, all you got to do is say, yeah, okay, there's a man and there's a woman. And if you're aware of anything else, please educate me. Otherwise, let's just stick with that and move on. And let's mind our own business. See, there's a freeing beauty to being a conservative. But when you're liberal, here's another one, BBC, we're back in England again. It gets really convoluted. You got to twist yourself into pretzels. And you, by the way, still piss off people. Because that last Irish chick that you just heard, Labour politician there that said, well, there's a legal definition and then there's this and then there's that. But then there's some people who are born a woman and then they've decided to transition. See, that'll get you canceled. People don't decide. And they weren't born a woman. They were born who they are, regardless of their chromosomes, regardless of their body parts. They're born based on, well, I can't define it. But people don't decide to transition, you bigot. They have no choice. It's who they are. See, there's no winning. There's no right answer when you're liberal, and it's beautiful to behold. Watch BBC.
Your party promotes women's rights. So please, can you tell me what a woman is?
Well, I know I'm a woman, and I think we know what we are, and I think all women are important, and their rights need to be protected. Whether they are black, Asian, white, whether they are gay or straight or bi, whether they have a very privileged upbringing or they don't have much money, whether they are cis or trans, whether they have a disability, we are all important in all of those different ways.
So how can you tell what a woman is?
Well, I mean, I'm just sort of trying to understand, what you're getting at. I think we know when we engage with each other, when we know if we are a woman, and I can tell you that I am, right? So, and we're not going to start a scenario where we go and perform inspections on people, are we?
No. What if a man wears a dress to work twice a week? Is he a woman?
Not necessarily.
But could he be?
Well, I think people can understand their own identity, and I think it's right to respect people in terms of their gender identity.
I don't know if you caught that because, they've got a heavy accent, and I don't speak a foreign language. They're British. Who knows exactly what they're saying? But the woman on the phone said, well, what about a man who wears a dress 2 days a week? Is that a woman? Which, by the way, the answer is embedded in the question. If you really paid attention, it's a man who dresses up like a woman 2 days a week. And the politician, her only response was, not necessarily. So could be that man who wears a dress 2 days a week could be a woman, but not necessarily. And it's glorious to watch. And it brings it back to our friend Pierre in Canada, because this guy is a freaking boss. This is the way you answer the question. But again, it's so freeing to be conservative, because if you're liberal, you're right back here.
And so that's for them to say.
If you dress as a woman twice a week to go to work, do you count whose gender pay gap? Do you count as a woman for the gender pay or a man?
Well, clearly, in terms of the gender pay gap, members of staff will identify their gender in company records to HR typically, and the company will then produce the statistics accordingly.
Anna, can I explain why this has become a talking point within the Liberal Democrat campaign? It's because you've promised complete reform of the Gender Recognition Act and effectively said you will remove the need for medical tests and feeds, that individuals will be able to self-identify. Now, to
be honest, largely can currently, and I think that this formalizes that, and it removes what are existing barriers that end up creating
discrimination. Wait, what are the barriers? What barriers are we talking about exactly? They're barriers. I mean, some barriers are larger than others. I've got my own barrier. I have a barrier that keeps me from being a woman. I can't show it to you. It would make it for a very different video, but I promise you it's a significant barrier. Let's go all the way down under now, because apparently, again, this is a British Commonwealth problem, and it's not just women who have trouble with this. Here's a dude in New Zealand, politician, asked the same question. Just watch.
Sean. I just wanted to ask you, given comments by Keir Starmer in Britain, how do you and how does this government define a woman?
To be honest, Sean, that question's come slightly out of left field for me. Biology, sex, gender. People define themselves. People define their own genders.
Keir Starmer has said that he believes 99.9% of women do not have penises. And I know it's a strange thing for him to say, but given recent events in New Zealand, I'd ask again, how do you define what a woman is?
Well, I think as I've just indicated, I wasn't expecting that question, so it's not something that I've, pre-formulated an answer on. But in terms of gender identity, I think people define their gender identity.
I haven't pre-formulated an answer. Wasn't expecting this question. This is a professional politician at the highest levels in the New Zealand government. I'm sorry, I got to huddle with my staff and figure out how to answer that question. This is where we are now, which brings us back to our hero in Canada, one of the best things to come out of our 51st state.
Well, I don't know. Do you have any other genders that you'd like to name?
Me personally?
Yes.
I'm just asking more so if you're in line with what he is saying. Do you agree with what he's saying? Is that something that you would be lockstep with if elected as prime minister?
Well, I'm not aware of any other genders than men and women. I mean, if you have any other that you want me to consider, you're welcome to tell me right now.
That's how it's done. And that's how you do it. And that's why he's going to be your next prime minister of the beautiful state of Canada. All right. That's it, my friends. We did it. Do we have, I felt like we had more segments today, but I guess we've already run out the clock. We're 10 minutes after an hour. Cynthia, what did I do? Cynthia Delafante for $9.99. Thank you so much. Thank you, Larry, for helping to make sense of this crazy world. Red California. Oh, my heart goes out to you, Red California. You know, I was one of you until I moved to D.C., but I love my state still. And I love that. You're in Huntington Beach, aren't you? Are you in front of the Duke statue, I think? I know that statue. I think that's Huntington. Thanks, man. Thanks, Cynthia. I'm from Newport Beach, Corona Del Mar, by the way. Thank you. All right. Jill, Jil, $19.99. That's a hell of a super chat. Thank you so much. Not usually critical, but that's fine. You can all be critical. I love taking challenges. I have trouble seeing how you put any trust at all in Mike Johnson. All right, let me stop you there. I don't put a trust in politicians at all. I don't trust politicians. Politicians will screw you the first second they get. And my job isn't to defend or make excuses for politicians. I just give you my opinion of them, okay? So let's just get that out of the way. But I have met and know Mike Johnson as a man, as a person, as a father, as a human being. And I know that he's a good man based on my interactions with him and interacting with his family. All right. Now, that doesn't mean he's a great politician. It doesn't mean he's a great Speaker of the House. I'm just telling you, as a man, I can vouch for him. All right. Let me just get that out of the way. All right. He tried to sneak in that abomination of an omnibus bill, though hand in hand with the Dems spells rhino to more than just me. Listen, I was suspicious and critical, and I thought that was an abomination, and I was right there with you. I will say two things. Not in his defense, but I'll say two things of my observation about how that came down, Joe. Number one, when we the people spoke out and screamed bloody murder on social media and in any outlet that we had and through our representatives, he didn't try to cram it down people's throats and say, screw you. He pulled it and said, all right, fine, we'll go do something else. All right, number one. Now, you may say he should have never done it in the first place. You're right. You're right. He should have never done it in the first place. But he pulled it, and then we ended up with something better, okay? And he engineered that as well, number one. But number two, and more importantly, if you think he's a rhino and you think he's a terrible speaker and you think that we should do without him, okay, the problem is that from the point that happened, all the way through the holidays, all the way through New Year's, and right up until the day of the vote, January 3rd, nobody else emerged. No one else stepped up and said, I'll be your speaker. I'll do it. I'll take the gavel from that rhino's hands. Don't vote for Johnson, vote for me. What are you supposed to do if there's nobody else? And finally, I said two things, but I'll say a third thing too. And again, none of this is me saying I trust Johnson as Speaker of the House. It's me saying the political reality of what we were faced with. There's one third element, and that is Donald Trump said that he wanted him to be speaker. Donald Trump went out of his way to get on the phone and talk to the two congressmen who had voted against Johnson in that first ballot and said, go change your votes. We want Johnson. I want Johnson. We got to move forward. So with all of that, no one stepping up and Trump himself lobbying to keep him there, what are we supposed to do? I mean, if there's another alternative, I'll take it. But given what we've got, Johnson's got the job. Do I trust? I don't trust any politician. I don't trust any. But well said, Joe. And you're always be critical. That this is. I'm not Anderson Cooper. I'm willing to take criticism. You try that. I'd love to see Anderson Cooper take our comments at the end of his show. I'd love Jake Tapper to say, okay, my show's done. Now we'll take comments from the viewers. Anybody out there? Anyone at all? Thank you, Joe. Mav, $5 super chat. Hey, Larry, love your show as always. James Files shot JFK with a mercury-coated bullet, and the CIA has the casing as proof. See, this is why I love this story so much. I really do. And Mav, as far as I'm concerned, unless they actually release the papers, that could very well be exactly what happened. Or maybe not. I don't know. That's the point. Release it. Stop treating us like children. We can handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. Thank you, Mav. Well done, sir.
All right, Larry, there's one more that I sent you a private chat about.
Oh, yes, that's right. We're keeping our eye on Rumble and Arthur Brogdon. Wow, a $20 super chat. Arthur Brogdon, you are the best. Thank you very much. And you pre-ordered my book. Wow, thank you for that. Yeah, hey, everybody. Now, if you're a Kindle person, go ahead and get the Kindle. But I'll tell you, if you want the paperback or the hardcover, it's all been fine. I just saw the final previews. It's ready to publish. The colors look great. I've got blurbs, by the way, I got some advanced reviews. And you know how on the back of the book they get blurbs? I've got blurbs from Molly Hemingway at the Federalist, from Rick Grinnell, your new special envoy for, I forget what his new title is. Darn it. I got a blurb from Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary and now host of the Sean Spicer Show. I got a blurb from Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin, now president of Young America's Foundation. And I got a blurb from the great one, Mark Levin. They all gave me blurbs for my book. They said they liked it, and I am thrilled. I'm so thrilled. This is my first book. So if you like my analysis of the media, you will like my book. Go get it. Just get it for the cover. And then you can come to DC during CPAC coming up next month and find me, and I'll autograph it. All right, guys, thank you for watching today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow and comment and all that jazz. No show tomorrow on Friday. We're a Monday through Thursday kind of operation, but we'll be back Monday, same time, same place. In the meantime, my name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.